Maybe there's something I didn't think was necessary to tell you.
Pernell Roberts, the man who brought Adam Cartwright to life on Bonanza, seemed every bit the gentleman, calm, confident, and endlessly charismatic. But behind that composed exterior was a man of conviction, someone who lived by his principles and never hesitated to speak his mind, even if it cost him friendships, roles, or respect within the industry. While most Hollywood stars of his era chose to stay silent and hide their grudges to protect their image, Pernell took a different path. He believed honesty mattered more than popularity, and that belief made him one of the most misunderstood figures in Hollywood. At countless glittering Hollywood gatherings, Pernell didn't hide his disdain for certain people. Actors he saw as arrogant, hypocritical, or lacking in integrity. For him, these weren't petty disputes. They were clashes of values, of two very different ways of living. And today, we're diving into the 5 names that made it onto his private blacklist, along with the shocking stories behind each feud. Once you hear them, you'll never look at these stars the same way again. But before we begin, if you admire Pernell Roberts or have a soft spot for the great legends of the Western era, make sure to subscribe, because the truth behind Hollywood's golden age is far more gripping, scandalous, and human than the fiction it sold. Pernell Elvin Roberts Jr. was born on May 18, 1928, in the small town of Waycross, Georgia, a quiet corner of the Deep South where life during the Great Depression was anything but easy. He was the only child of Pernell Roberts Sr., a sales manager for Dr. Pepper, and Minnie Myrtle Morgan Roberts, a devoted mother who encouraged her son's creativity and artistic curiosity. From an early age, Pernell stood out. Unlike other boys who spent their time playing sports or getting into mischief, he was drawn to music and performance, playing the horn in his school band and performing at church gatherings. It was there that his love for the arts began to take shape, a quiet spark that would one day carry this small-town Southern boy all the way to Hollywood, where he would become one of the most outspoken, complex, and unforgettable figures of television's golden era. Even though Pernell Roberts had a natural gift for performing, acting wasn't something he ever planned on pursuing, at least not in the beginning. After finishing high school, he chose a sensible path and enrolled at Georgia Tech, hoping to build a future in engineering. But it didn't take long before he realized that formulas and blueprints couldn't satisfy the restless creativity inside him. His life took a sharp turn in 1946, when he joined the United States Marine Corps and served for 2 years. There, amid the strict discipline of military life, he found his refuge in music, playing the tuba and the horn in the Marine Corps band, keeping that small flame of artistry alive even while wearing the uniform. When his service ended, Pernell faced a choice: settle for the ordinary or chase something greater. He decided to leap. Enrolling at the University of Maryland, he found himself drawn back to the stage, performing in student productions and feeling a kind of purpose he had never known before. Acting stopped being just a pastime. It became something deeper, almost a calling. Eventually, he made the brave decision to leave college altogether and dedicate himself fully to the craft. In the early 1950s, with nothing but determination and a suitcase full of dreams, Pernell Roberts headed to New York City, a place where ambition was tested and only the truly passionate survived. He enrolled at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, spending his days refining his technique and his nights working odd jobs just to afford the next day's meal. It was a hard life, but he never complained. Then, in 1952, his patience paid off when he landed his very first role in The Man Who Came to Dinner. It wasn't a starring part, but it was enough, a first real step into the world he was meant to be in. From that moment on, Pernell's journey was no longer about chasing fame. It was about staying true to himself, building a career on integrity, courage, and a quiet refusal to let anyone else write his story for him. After that first small victory on stage, Pernell Roberts dove headfirst into the world of theater. He wasn't just performing anymore, he was commanding the stage. With that deep, resonant voice, piercing stare, and unwavering commitment to every role, he quickly became impossible to ignore. Soon, he was tackling some of the greatest works ever written: Macbeth, The Taming of the Shrew, Romeo and Juliet. At the New York Shakespeare Festival, his performances earned him a reputation as a true craftsman, an actor whose presence could quiet an entire audience. And by the late 1950s, Hollywood had begun to take notice. In 1958, Pernell made his big-screen debut in Desire Under the Elms, acting alongside legends like Sophia Loren and Burl Ives. Even among such towering figures, he held his own, powerful, composed, and utterly believable. That same year, he stepped into the Western genre with The Sheepman, a film that unknowingly foreshadowed the path his career was about to take. Within months, he was appearing in popular TV westerns such as The Virginian and Gunsmoke, steadily carving out a name for himself as one of television's most promising new faces. Then came 1959, the year that would define him. Pernell Roberts was chosen to play Adam Cartwright, the intelligent, brooding eldest son in NBC's Bonanza. The show became an instant phenomenon, drawing millions of viewers each week and turning the Cartwright family into American icons. Pernell's portrayal stood out, the calm voice of reason, the moral compass of the Ponderosa Ranch, the son every father wished for and every audience admired. Almost overnight, he became a household name. But behind the bright lights and adoration, Pernell felt something deeper, a quiet conflict growing inside him. The fame was real, the success undeniable, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that Adam Cartwright wasn't who he truly was. The scripts felt shallow, the moral lessons too simple, the character too confined. And as the world celebrated him, Pernell Roberts began to wonder if the price of success was losing the very authenticity he'd fought so hard to protect. Pernell Roberts was never the kind of man to bite his tongue when something felt wrong, and on the set of Bonanza, that quality made him both admired and feared. While most actors were content to follow the script and collect their paychecks, Pernell demanded more. He clashed often with the show's producers, frustrated by what he saw as lazy writing and the lack of emotional depth in his character, Adam Cartwright. To him, Bonanza might have been a cultural phenomenon, adored by millions, but beneath the surface, it lacked purpose. It didn't challenge society, didn't ask questions, didn't make people feel. So, in 1965, at the very peak of his success, Pernell did the unthinkable. He walked away. 6 seasons, worldwide fame, and one of the most beloved characters on television. All left behind because he refused to settle for mediocrity. Hollywood was stunned. Many predicted it would be the end of his career. But Pernell didn't care. He'd rather start over than lose himself in something he no longer believed in. He returned to the theater, the place where his passion had first been born, while continuing to appear in guest roles on television, slowly rebuilding his career on his own terms. And as always, his persistence paid off. By the late 1970s, he landed the role of Dr. John McIntyre in Trapper John M.D., a part that earned him critical acclaim and introduced him to a whole new generation of viewers. Yet even with that renewed success, Pernell remained the same principled, outspoken man he'd always been. Behind that calm demeanor and thoughtful gaze still burned the same unshakable honesty, and with it came strong opinions about certain people he'd crossed paths with in Hollywood. And that leads us to the side of Pernell Roberts few have ever heard about, the 5 actors he truly couldn't stand, and the surprising reasons behind each feud. Once you hear their names, you'll never look at these Hollywood legends the same way again. Number 1. Michael Landon. In the early days of Bonanza, Pernell Roberts and the show's youngest star shared a cordial, almost brotherly relationship. They laughed between takes, respected each other's craft, and for a while, everything seemed harmonious. But as Michael Landon's fame skyrocketed, that balance began to crack. Charismatic and beloved by fans, Landon quickly became the face of the show, Bonanza's golden child. Yet behind the camera, Pernell saw a different side of him, one driven not by artistry, but by ambition. Over time, Landon's influence behind the scenes grew. He started writing, producing, even directing episodes, and with every script revision, Roberts noticed a pattern. Landon's character, Little Joe, always seemed to come out on top, while others were pushed into the background. It infuriated him. To Pernell, it wasn't about ego, it was about integrity. He believed storytelling should serve truth, not vanity. According to crew members, their tension finally erupted when Roberts confronted him, saying coldly, "You're not trying to make the show better, you're trying to make yourself bigger." After that, the friendship was over. On set, they only spoke when the cameras rolled. Roberts grew to despise what he called Landon's perfect image, that carefully crafted persona of the sensitive, spiritual hero. To him, it was all performance. It's more of the same. He's still playing cowboy, still playing saint. A single sentence, but one that revealed how deeply the bitterness still lingered, long after the lights of the Ponderosa had faded. Number 2. Dan Blocker. Unlike his feud with Michael Landon, Pernell Roberts' conflict with Dan wasn't fueled by anger, it was born from disappointment. In the early days of Bonanza, the two shared a genuine bond. Both were classically trained actors who believed that even in a Western, every line should carry truth and humanity. They respected each other deeply, on and off the set. But as the years went on and Roberts' clashes with producers intensified, something between them began to break. Dan Blocker, who played the kind-hearted Hoss Cartwright, tried to stay out of the crossfire. He was the peacekeeper of the cast, always calm, always trying to smooth things over. But to Pernell, that neutrality felt like betrayal. He believed Dan should have stood beside him when he criticized the show's lazy storytelling and its tone-deaf portrayal of Native Americans. Instead, Dan chose diplomacy. And to a man like Roberts, that choice cut deep. But in what he saw as Hollywood's moral weakness. The breaking point came during filming one afternoon, when Pernell, enraged by what he called a degrading script, stormed off the set mid-scene. Dan quietly continued filming, hoping to keep the peace. Later that day, Roberts confronted him, his voice calm but filled with pain. "You had a choice. You always had a choice." From that moment on, the warmth between them faded. Their friendship, once built on mutual respect, turned to quiet distance. Dan never spoke poorly of Pernell in public, but he also never defended him again. And for Roberts, a man who valued loyalty above everything, that silence was the wound that never healed. Number 3. Chuck Connors. Their feud didn't start on the Bonanza set, yet it burned hotter than anyone expected. Chuck Connors, the towering star of The Rifleman, carried himself like Hollywood royalty, charming on camera, larger than life in person. But according to those who were there, behind the curtain, he was a different man entirely. At a charity gala honoring Western television legends, Connors' mask began to slip. Crew members whispered that he barked orders, dismissed people without a glance, and treated the night as though it revolved around him alone. For Pernell Roberts, who believed deeply in respect, equality, and authenticity, that kind of arrogance was poison. He stood silently at first, watching Connors berate a young assistant over a trivial mistake, and that was enough. When the two finally came face to face backstage, the air turned electric. Witnesses say Roberts didn't raise his voice, but his words cut deep. He called Connors a fraud, accusing him of caring more about his own fame than the people who helped him get there. Connors snapped back, laughing bitterly. He called Roberts a bitter quitter, a man who couldn't handle the price of success. That was the breaking point. From that night on, there was no respect, no friendship, just quiet contempt. Behind closed doors, Roberts would later refer to him as all hat, no soul, a man who looked the part of a hero but lived like a villain. To Pernell, Chuck Connors wasn't just another actor. He was the embodiment of everything fake and hollow in Hollywood. Number 4. Lorne Greene. Of all Pernell Roberts' Hollywood conflicts, none cut deeper than his feud with Lorne Greene, the man who played his on-screen father, Ben Cartwright. To viewers, their relationship radiated warmth and respect, a model of family devotion. Behind the camera, however, it was a very different story. Roberts often said that working with Greene felt stifling, that the older actor, both on and off screen, carried an unspoken air of control he couldn't tolerate. Roberts resented how Greene seemed completely content with Bonanza's formulaic storytelling, the neat resolutions, the moral simplicity, the avoidance of real social issues. While Pernell wanted the show to explore human complexity, to challenge its audience with stories that carried real weight, Greene remained steadfastly loyal to the network's conservative blueprint. To Pernell, this wasn't professionalism, it was surrender. He chose comfort over courage, Roberts once confided to a friend. What started as artistic tension soon became deeply personal. Roberts believed Greene saw him as a threat, a younger actor willing to question scripts, challenge direction, and demand honesty in performance. On set, the distance between them grew with every season. Roberts couldn't stand the way Green's quiet authority influenced the cast, how everyone, particularly the younger actors, seemed to fall in line without thought. By 1965, Roberts had reached his limit. He walked away from Bonanza, leaving behind not just a beloved character, but one of the biggest paychecks in television history, choosing integrity over comfort. When asked why he left, his answer was blunt and revealing, "I just couldn't spend the rest of my life taking my hat off and saying, 'Yes, Pa.'" To the public, Lorne Greene was America's ideal TV dad, wise, steady, endlessly kind. But to Pernell Roberts, he represented everything he despised about Hollywood's cautious conservatism. Where the world saw warmth and stability, Roberts saw complacency, a man too willing to play it safe, too content to keep things exactly as they were. Number 5. James Drury. The final name on Pernell Roberts' list of Hollywood conflicts was James Drury, the stoic star of The Virginian. Unlike other feuds, this one wasn't about ego or acting styles, it was about values. Pernell had always been vocal about the issues that mattered to him. He spoke out against racism, denounced the Vietnam War, and criticized Hollywood for turning a blind eye to injustice. Drury, by contrast, was a staunch conservative who believed that politics had no place in entertainment. Their clash of ideals came to a head in the 1970s during a televised panel discussing the future of television. Roberts didn't hold back, condemning networks for avoiding real-world issues and turning westerns into what he called comfort food for the masses. Drury fired back immediately, "The public doesn't want sermons, they want escape." The debate grew heated and, by the end, neither man would shake the other's hand. Later, Roberts confided to a friend, Drury was never just an actor. He was a mouthpiece for the status quo. What infuriated him most was Drury's silence during the civil rights movement, a time when Pernell believed Drury could have made a difference. To Roberts, staying silent in the face of injustice wasn't neutrality. It was betrayal. Through it all, Pernell Roberts remained uncompromising. He lived by his convictions, willing to sacrifice comfort for truth. Hollywood saw him as bold, outspoken, and unyielding, but his private life told a different story, one filled with loneliness, heartbreak, and the struggles of a man who demanded the same honesty from himself that he demanded from the world around him. His personal life was as turbulent as his career was daring. Pernell married 4 times, each relationship marked by its own trials. His first marriage, to Vera, a theater professor, began in 1951 and brought him a son, Jonathan Christopher Roberts. Pernell adored Jonathan, but his restless spirit and the demands of his rising career made it difficult to stay grounded in family life. By 1959, the marriage ended in divorce. Though he remained involved in his son's life, emotional distance and the pressures of fame often strained their bond, leaving Pernell to navigate the delicate balance between his art, his principles, and the family he cherished. Pernell Roberts' personal life was as complex and compelling as his career. His next 2 marriages, first to Judith Anna Lear and then to Karanak, also ended in divorce. Friends often observed that Pernell was a man who fiercely valued personal freedom, someone for whom emotional intimacy came with difficulty. He was intensely private, keeping his deepest feelings locked away, inadvertently creating walls between himself and the people who loved him most. The greatest heartbreak of his life came in 1989, when his only son, Jonathan, tragically died in a motorcycle accident at just 38. The loss devastated Pernell. Those close to him said he was never quite the same, and though he rarely spoke of it publicly, the grief stayed with him for the rest of his life. In his later years, he found some solace with his 4th wife, Ella Laner Criswell, whom he married in 1997. They remained together until his passing, offering companionship and peace. Yet even then, the shadows of lost love, failed marriages, and the unbearable pain of losing a child never fully lifted. Pernell Roberts lived boldly, fearlessly, and on his own terms. But that freedom came at a profound personal cost. Beneath the confident public persona was a man carrying decades of quiet sorrow. Away from the camera, Pernell's life was a tapestry of love, loss, and private struggles few ever glimpsed. Choosing peace and privacy over Hollywood fame, he continued acting in theater and television on his own terms after leaving Bonanza. The 1980s brought renewed recognition with Trapper John M.D., where he captivated a new generation with his commanding presence and nuanced performances. Even as the spotlight faded, Roberts remained steadfast in his principles. He shunned fan conventions, rarely gave interviews, and dedicated his time to music, social justice, and those closest to him. Behind the calm exterior, he fought a silent battle with pancreatic cancer. On January 24, 2010, Pernell Roberts passed away at his Malibu home at the age of 81, confronting the disease with courage and quiet dignity. His death marked the end of an era, leaving him as the last surviving member of Bonanza's original cast. Though he never chased fame or played Hollywood politics, Pernell's influence on television and acting was profound. He was a pioneer, willing to walk away from a hit show that compromised his artistic and moral standards. Long before it was fashionable, he spoke out on social and racial issues, demanding honest, meaningful roles not just for himself, but for all performers, leaving behind a legacy of integrity, courage, and uncompromising vision. Fans remember Pernell Roberts not just as the strong, silent Adam Cartwright of Bonanza, but as a man defined by conviction and integrity. His legacy isn't only the characters he embodied, but the principles he lived by, the risks he dared to take, and the lessons he left behind. Most notably, that sometimes the bravest act is simply to walk away. Though he has passed, his voice, on screen and off, continues to resonate with those who admired his talent and respected his unwavering values. At the time of his death, he left behind more than memories, an estimated $10 million fortune. To most, Pernell's career would seem like the ultimate triumph, a lifetime of dedication in Hollywood rewarded with fame and fortune. But for him, none of that ever truly mattered. Money held little appeal, and fame never thrilled him. Even at the height of Bonanza, when he earned nearly $10,000 per episode and was one of the highest-paid actors of the 1960s, he felt a quiet restlessness, an unshakable longing for something deeper, something more meaningful. Behind the glamour of television stardom, Pernell wrestled with the compromises of the industry. He despised how art was reduced to a product, how emotion and authenticity were packaged for mass consumption. Celebrity held no allure. Purpose did. For a time, he played the part expected of him, wearing the costume, hitting his marks, and accepting the applause. Yet his conscience never allowed him to settle. His principles ran far deeper than any script. While millions were captivated by Adam Cartwright, Pernell marched in Selma, Alabama, alongside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., not as a Hollywood star, but as a man compelled to act against injustice. That was no performance, that was real life. On set, he challenged the system, questioning why crew members of color were absent, why white actors repeatedly portrayed Native Americans, and why progress moved at a glacial pace. His protests often went unheard, yet he never stopped speaking out. Family and friends saw his efforts, but even their support could not quench the fire within. Pernell Roberts could have stayed in Hollywood, built an empire, basked in luxury, and coasted on fame. But he chose integrity over applause. He walked away, not out of pride, but from an unyielding desire for authenticity, purpose, and a life lived on his own terms.